Welcome to What's the Effort?
What the F?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a super edition of What the Effie. I want to say you guys are really lucky to be here today with what I consider to be a future star. I'm not talking about Oscar. I'm talking about his daughter. I'm talking about Audrey. I want to say, Audrey, thank you so much for coming on here and for allowing us to learn a little bit about you. Now, I'd like to start, if you don't mind. You're here because you're starting a business, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad and I start. Oh,
Yeah. Could you kindly tell us how the idea started?
definitely. Yeah. So my dad and I started a brand called God is an Investor, and it started very casually. Actually, it was after a Sunday sermon, and like always, we went to lunch with the family, and of course, my dad and I love talking about business, real estate, investments. He's been teaching me about real estate and just in general entrepreneurship since I was around 13 during the pandemic. So my dad always says like we have to talk about business during every meal so it can be counted as a business expense. So we were talking about investments, yeah. And it clicked with us that God himself is also an investor. He invests in each of us gifts and talents that we should use to make his world a better place. And I was talking about that, and my dad was like, Audrey, that's literally Matthew 25:15, the parable of the talents. And I was like, what is that? And then he explained it to me, and I remembered during Sunday school, like a very long time ago, I learned about it. And it was just so great to refresh my memory on that and realize that we each all have talents that God puts in each of us to brighten up his world.
That's pretty cool. That is really cool. So how did you decide that your talents would be well used in, well, I don't even want to tell everybody what it is. Why don't you tell us what is your business? The concept of God is an investor is awesome. And your dad is wearing the hat. I love the way that you guys are using the T as the cross. Very smart. But what is the business? I can see a hat.
Yeah, so our business is a faith-based streetwear brand called God is an Investor, of course. Currently, we have 3 products: a shirt that my dad is wearing. We have a talented hoodie that I'm wearing as well. It's black on black, so if you can see the light hitting it a little bit. And we also have a t-shirt.
Nice. So it's faith-based streetwear. And right now you've got the t-shirt, the hoodie, and the hat.
Yes.
Nice. Who are you targeting? Who are your customers?
So the people we're targeting currently are people who are expressive of their faith. That's who we've been attracting recently. We're definitely catering towards investors, obviously, since I think a lot of people can relate to, if they're investors themselves, to God being their own investor. But our brand is not just focused on just Christians or just investors. The meaning behind it really expands to everyone.
Good. So I think it's very catchy and cool. And I'm glad that it is to everyone. But who do you think your clients are?
Our clients currently, I would say, are my dad's community, definitely, with all his resources and his influence around the people around us, especially with us going to a recent skydiving real estate meetup. It's definitely that kind of community.
Did you go skydiving? No.
I didn't know, but my dad and my mom did, and they had the time of their lives. So that was so fun.
Nice.
Watch out for a upcoming reel and behind the scenes video on my dad's page. So
nice. Very nice. That's nice. Oh, I think that means Effie, but I'm not sure. Thank you, Sherry. I'll take it. Autocorrect always changes my name. So, um, I think it's very wise to start with the community. Absolutely. Why not? Um, when, like right now, when these things being made, are they being made here or are they being made in another country? Or talk to us about how you're doing the business of your business. I'm super
We've
excited
been,
for you.
yeah, we've been working with local manufacturers in Chicago. Um, we're still in the process of testing out different producers and manufacturers, seeing what's best for us. We're actually going to be going to the largest fashion convention in the world in Vegas this next month. So we're definitely going to be looking over there. We're looking at overseas and outsourcing as well, but currently it's local in Chicago. And yeah.
Nice, nice. That's a wonderful experience for you to be getting. Is it fun and like not a big deal, or is it overwhelming?
It is so fun. I love doing anything with God as an investor. It's my baby. I I do not like mind the amount of hours or the amount of traveling or the amount of schoolwork that piles up because of it, because this is something I'm so passionate about. It's something I believe has a deeper meaning than just clothing that you can buy and just wear it. It really makes an impact on lives. It's made an impact on my life, and it's helping me do something that I love to do, which is build businesses.
Great. Awesome. There is something to be said for the fact that God is an investor in investing in us, does create a responsibility for us to invest in ourselves too and in other people. So um, Rory says, great work ethic, Audrey. I think a lot of us would agree with that. How old are you, Audrey? May I ask?
I'm 16. I'm a junior in high school.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, I can see, having started something like this at such a young age, that it will give you great confidence to be able to face anything and do anything. Um, do you know yet what your plans are once high school's finished?
I'm hoping to go to college and network a lot. I plan to major in business management or economics. And the main reason for me going to college specifically is just to find my network, find a business partner, um, find people that inspire me my own age. I know there's other ways to do that. Like I can definitely find people through LinkedIn or other communities like SubTo. Um, but I do think being in that college environment will help me find peers my own age that I can really start something on our own with.
Very, very wise. I don't talk about my own family very often, but when my son decided he wanted to not go to college because he was studying film, he had reached out to one of his, like famous people he admired, and that person told him he should go to college for the fun of it, for the experience, so that you're not left out. And I thought that was very wise. Um, you don't have to, well, it depends. If you want to be a doctor, yeah, you got to go forever. But there are so many more things in college and in university, and you're recognizing those as value. And that's awesome. That's really awesome. Um, I would like you to tell us just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of a flip about what you have learned in real estate with your dad, because full disclosure, Audrey and Oscar and I spent an entire day today. I guess it was months, looking at your father's future Airbnb. And I know that he's had you along, as to learning. What have you learned and what exposure have you had?
I have learned so incredibly much about real estate in the past, 3 years of my life. Starting from the pandemic, I started just with Rich Dad Poor Dad, learning what assets and liabilities are. That was like my first intro to real estate, well, let alone real estate, like entrepreneurship in general. Then I started learning about fix and flips, rentals, and wholesales, and what the difference between each of those were. Then I started going with my dad to his properties. I would do my online school since they were remote over like Zoom. I would do them in the car while we were going to his properties, and I would learn about what a facade is, what a gutter is, and where vents go, and how to do electric and plumbing stuff. So I would say I learned a lot about houses in general, and the process I've learned so much about as well. I would say that additionally, the most important thing that I've learned about real estate throughout my journey is how to talk to people. Cold calling sellers has been a big life-changing experience for me in my journey of public speaking and just feeling comfortable talking to new people, especially strangers, just over call. Just the action of picking up the phone every day to call random strangers that you're finding their number off of Zillow. It's a crazy experience, and I would say it really helped me build my character to what it is today.
Good for you. I agree. Selling to someone you don't know is not an easy thing. Melanie says, Audrey, I love your mindset on why you're going to college. 16 and already crushing it. You go, girl. I have to agree with her. I think that is absolutely the way to go. Getting started young and when you're not as afraid, and you can just have fun with it. And then I think that you're going to be able to see a lot of things ahead of you. Now we have Pace is starting a kids group in SubTo, and I think that you would qualify as an OG. And since you're not 18 yet, I think we have to face you're also still a teenager. What advice would you give to other young people in SubTo that are looking to start in real estate, since we're touching on real estate at this moment? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid. When I was first starting out, when I was 13 and just cold calling, I felt really insecure about specifically my age. I felt like I wasn't good enough or smart enough or had enough life experience to be calling these people about their houses. And after talking with Mindset Marlon, shout out to him, he was a huge help to me on my mindset journey and understanding that my age is actually a tool. Like starting out this young for you guys, and I'm talking to the SubTo kids, you guys are going to do so many amazing things in the future if you're starting now. So keep up the great work and don't be afraid. One of my favorite quotes is do one thing every day that scares you, by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Nice. Very, very nice. So I'm interested in knowing, you're looking at fashion and you've got your line going already. Do you know what you would like to see in your line if you had the magic wand and could project, let's say, a year? We know we want sales, we know we want profits, but are there other things you'd like in your line?
Currently, we're working on different collections as well. I would like to see more variance in my line and eventually be able to do more custom clothing.
Okay. And when you say clothing, are you talking, what sort of things come to your mind?
I would love to do like puffer jackets or just outerwear as well. And I think sweatpants would be really cool too, cargo pants.
Good. Excellent. All right. And what kind of advice would you give to teenagers who are, perhaps seeing this, because this will be on the internet for a while, and Jim LaBella, you might regret what you put on there, because your son might. Sorry, Jim. He says, you're very impressive, Audrey. I wish I could get my 15-year-old son to think the way you are and the fantastic direction you are moving in. Keep up the great work. You're going to be extremely successful, which we know for a fact. As a matter of fact, if we could put our money on you, I think you'd have a lot of people who'd be saying, yes, give me a piece of that. So, wanting to be able to bet on your future because of what you're willing to do now. So, what about the teenagers that are going to be watching this? And they'll be maybe a little younger, maybe the same age, and they haven't done anything. What would you say to them? And they might not be interested in a line of clothing. Who knows? You know, teenagers have a lot of interests, very varied interests, but they'd like to go into business. What would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
I would say Nike says just do it, and I totally agree with that. Anything you start, I would say, is a business. Whether you want to do streaming on Twitch, for example, you want to do video game streaming, whether you want to do a slime company, or you want to start doing content creation on TikTok. These are all different types of businesses, and just starting this young as teenagers, you have so many resources available to you, not just because you're just so impressive at starting this at your age, which is definitely a positive, but you also have room for failure. You're not at the point in life where if you invest like $1,000 into something and it ends up failing, like you're not gonna be on the streets being able to feed yourself. At this age, you have so many resources available to you that I would say just go ahead and do it, no matter what society around you says, whether they say no, focus on your studies, focus on college, do what you love, and it'll work out as long as you have your why.
Yep.
And you have a purpose for where you want to go in life.
Was it difficult for you to find your why?
I would say it took some time. I think when I started high school, it was definitely difficult for me to distinguish myself from the rest of my peers. The idea of college really scared me. I remember in third grade, I would literally count the years and the months until I would graduate because I was just that scared. And it was so hard
Because
for
you were
me
so
to
scared that you
find.
had to face it?
I was so scared of being on my own because I saw people around me. They were academic geniuses. They were ballerinas. They were child actors. While I mean, I had straight A's, but it's not like I was a genius, you know. And I was worried that I don't have a why in life. Like I have no idea what my purpose is in life and what I want to do. And I was just so incredibly scared.
Oh,
So when my
wow.
dad introduced Rich Dad Poor Dad to me and introduced me to the SubTo community, I figured out my why. It's to be a person that inspires others and additionally builds up businesses that have meaning and contribute to the world.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about inspiring people. You can tick that one off, girl. That is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Lisa says, just do it. My favorite motivational phrase, wishing you much continued success, Audrey and Oscar. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing for me to hear you say that you were afraid to the point where you were counting the months and years, because I see you as so comfortable in your own skin. And I see you're so gorgeous and you're so, like not
Thank you.
in your face, like I'm going to smash you, that kind of confidence, but just smart, quiet, but very strong confidence. So I want to say thank you very, very, very much. Now, I am sad to say, but it's true. Audrey needs to go. She has other commitments. So I was really, really lucky to get her, even for this amount of time. So please drop some thanks in the chat for Audrey being here, and we will stay on with her dad. So give her whatever thanks you can for the wisdom that she's spreading and the good that she has done. And thank you, Audrey, so much. I really, really appreciate
Thank
your
you
help.
so much, Effie. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Have a great day.
You
guys.
too. Enjoy. Oh my gosh, Oscar.
That's it, right? We don't need to say anything else. Like, show's over. Like, that's it.
I know. I know. That mic just went boom. She's such a fantastic young person.
Yeah, and yeah, this kind of thing is where fatherhood is about, right? And um, everything that I do right now is towards building that future, right? It's not for me anymore. And sometimes we talk, with my wife before we sleep or when we wake up. It's really like it's not about us anymore. It's about them and how we build them up. This is to me that kind of reshaped the term generational wealth, right? Because it's not with the asset. It's really not with the houses and the business you have. It's with the mindset and what you impart them to build on their own generation, right?
Absolutely.
For themselves. And,
Ab-
and and being able to fail and for us to catch them right before it gets, because once they're like 25, 30, it's harder for them to quote unquote fail because of the risk. But right now, I mean, this business could quote unquote fail and not as well. It's already have some issues, right? Just per se, right? Because it's
Challenges.
not as, yeah. So and she's going through it, right? And
Good.
this is the process that I want her to go through because I know there's going to be a problem,
Yeah.
but I'm just standing on the sideline and I'm looking at that. I'm pouring into her,
Good.
right? And
Yeah, we can
that's the
see that.
goal of this. Yeah. Mhm.
That is really, really cool to think that, she can have that kind of freedom to try things. And not everyone, of course, has the, I certainly didn't have the kind of father you are. But I think it's such a wonderful thing when you can help your child to take steps that they might not have. When she was younger, did you know she was so afraid of going off to college?
Um, I know she has my character when I was growing up, which that's being very introvert. Like I'm naturally introvert, right? So, and being an introvert, I think it's also comparing yourself to other people and comparing, again, being a teenager. I would say when I was growing up as a teenager, I would look at clothing, I would look at stuff, right? I would look at the things that they have, and even though we could avoid it, we don't give it to them, right? We still being very moderate. Use iPhones, right? Not like the best and the latest and greatest. Nothing. It was like all pass me down and all this stuff, right? Even her clothing we buy at thrift stores, for example, right? So she
Hmm.
used to that, and then now when she goes to school, obviously she sees people in Mercedes Benz and BMW dropping her off and everything while she has to go to school walking, right? And she's still right now she still goes to school with bus and trains, right? Because we encourage her to, not because we can't. Sometimes when it's rain and everything, like, okay, take an Uber, or I'll drive her, right? But the environment where she grows in, or where she kind of have a social interaction, is very different than at our home. And I think that creates her mind to think that she's wrong, or she's something. She doesn't grow up natural, right?
Hmm.
But I think that's the challenge. That's
Hmm.
what that's the challenge that COVID happens, and that gave me an opportunity to just kind of pour into her, because now she's with me. She's with us 8 hours during the day for a
I
good
love
6 to 8 months,
I
right?
love
And that gave us me an opportunity because when there was no school, I was like, here you go, rich dad poor dad. Okay, let's play Monopoly. Let's play. There was a Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey has a game too for the juniors, and it's less complicated than a cash flow game by Robert Kiyosaki.
it.
So we play that too,
Good.
and we use that. So we put that mindset, and then as soon as I was able to go and see the houses again, she was the one that I took right away, right?
Is she
Because
the oldest?
and I'm sorry.
Is she the oldest?
She's the oldest. Yep, I have another youngest one, Adeline. She's 14 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yes, that's my next project.
Well,
One at a time.
yeah, and the thing is that when it comes to parenting, I think that leading by example is a huge one. So
Right.
for you to be showing the example of investing, the example of getting yourself out there and doing things and not, and learning and going along and improving,
Mhm.
sets, and also expecting them to do the same. It
Yeah.
sets them up so that they understand that they can, and that it's, at least in our family, it's normal, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if yeah, your younger one comes along also, just because she's got the example now.
Yeah.
And
And she's yeah. And she's very different in terms of knowing the vision and her purpose and all those stuff, right? Because Audrey, I need to guide her. I need to continuously guide her because at one point she was without direction, I would say, right? Because she told me that too, right? She told us that too. With Adeline, she knows even when she was like 13 or last year, um, she wanted to be a psychiatrist because she wants to help her friends. So she interact with a lot of friends who needs friends. That's how she is. Like, so that's also my personality because I would approach, in all meetings and everything, even though I'm an introvert, I would approach people who hang out by themselves, for example, right? I don't go to people who has who's like talking with people, two, three people talking. I go to the one that's by themselves, and
got it.
and that's Adeline, right? She would go to, like, she doesn't like to mingle with popular people, quote unquote. She likes to mingle with the one that is by herself, and then where that she found a purpose there, which I'm like, man, that's cool, right? Like at the age of 13, every time we ask her, I want to be a psychiatrist. That's it. Like, she wants to be a psychiatrist. She knows where she wants to go to school, not Western medicine. That's it. She knows. She knows the path that for the next 10, 20 years of her life already, which is
Wow.
amazing for
Yeah, it
someone
is.
who's like 14 years old. And she also loves to cook, which just comes from my mom, because my mom was the chef when we had the restaurant. So like, I love the girl and the woman she grows into, and I feel like, when it comes for me to come into her life even more,
Mhm.
it's a different challenge, but that's something I'm looking forward to.
That is pretty cool, to say the
Yeah.
least. I think
Hmm.
that's awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Um, and if any of us can help, oh, hey guys, one thing you absolutely can do, anyone who's on here, please, I'd like you to go to Audrey's, to God is an Investor on IG and follow her. That's a very easy thing to do that will help her get support. And the other thing you need to know is that they have a website and a start, and it's godisaninvestor.co. No M. You have to note that, okay? No M. So, of course, going on there on IG or even on the website, I've already bought a couple of hats. I just wish I had them when for this
Thank.
podcast. That's okay. I realize that she's not really targeting my age range, but I would have loved to have been able to wear it. And guys, do give someone like this the support that you feel in your heart, because you know Kirk is so awesome. Done, he says. Okay. All right. Well, that's awesome. He also says earlier on in Elena and my SubTo journey, Audrey reached out to us with a for sale by owner listing. It was my first seller call. Wow. She literally inspired me and gave me the strength to pursue SubTo. Isn't that isn't that something? Because Kirk is an adult and I see him as a strong adult, and he's got a good education. He's an architect and he has, success. And to think that a young person of Audrey's age could come and say, okay, here's a listing. Let's go. I can see how that you would look and say, well, heck, yeah, let's do it. So thank you for sharing that, Kirk. That's awesome. Awesome. So pretty cool, I will say. Tell us, I encourage you, and I'd love to have her on again. I didn't get the chance to tell her, but please share with her that I'd love to have her on again in another half year or so, whenever she would like to come back on, tell us how things are going, success or failure, because of the fact that it will be a wonderful follow up for her. There's no doubt that young lady can speak well. She's extremely composed and can do great things. I'd love to see how it goes. And definitely, anytime we're at SubTo, you should be squat up, man. There should be a booth there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have a lot of good plans, for this year, and that's one of the things that I try to teach her because of all the 20 something years. Because I've had a lot of businesses in the past, right? I was working for Motorola. I became a wedding photographer, and I started a restaurant, and I'm like right now I have a few other businesses related to real estate. So I'm kind of teaching her my failures, right? I'm teaching her how not to do and what to do right. And I'm still learning, but at least she can make new mistakes, right? And this is a new business that I haven't been into, like selling streetwear, apparel, and everything. I'm never into that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I like to inspire, right? I
Yep.
like to inspire, and especially if I can inspire her to create this and also bridge other people too. That's to me, that's a success for my personal goal.
Yes. How could it
Mhm.
not be?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about your business, Oscar. You're an OG, and I'm still indebted to you because before I came to Chicago and I was still in Vancouver, I reached out to you, and you were very welcoming. And as I said a little earlier, we spent a full day together with Audrey and you in Indiana and in your properties here, and you've answered so many questions. And you pushed me to go do my first door knocking, even though it was so funny when you're like, don't go to the door without going to the houses first. On either side, they could be dangerous. I'm like, ooh, okay. So that was kind of funny. But you've helped me a lot. And I know you've helped many, many other people. So you're a true OG with wonderful standards. And I know that you have built a portfolio here. Start off by telling us what is in your portfolio, what your own curve was like, where you want to go, because I know you're shifting like most
Yeah.
Chicagonians who have half a brain, they want to leave because it's so cold here. But tell us about
Yeah, well,
your
it's not about the cold per se. Like we investors, we have thick skin per se, right? So it's not about the cold, but it's about the politics, the ever changing rules and regulation. But thank you, yes, sir. Appreciate that.
very nice.
It really means a lot coming from you. Uh, but yeah, to just a little bit story about how I started the investor journey. So I had the restaurant. I started a restaurant in 2012, and moving to 2016, 2017, the restaurant's kind of going, right? You at that point, you got the operation. It's a daily grind, right? So restaurant is always a daily grind. Even though you have your operation system, you're selling the same products. You have specials here and there, but it's always people come in and out. You always have to fix something. You always have to improve something. But at that point, I was pretty good in terms of system and processes, and I start to see that eventually this restaurant's going to end. I had that feeling already, right? I don't know when, right? We kind of enjoy the growth, we enjoy the income, and we enjoy the comfort life we have. However, we know it's not going to be forever. So I start looking at, especially when the kids are growing, we start looking at, well, what kind of lifestyle we want. Because at that point, 4 years in, I'm always busy on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and or Sunday. Our lives always tailored towards the restaurant. Sometimes I have to go and cancel a family activity because I have to go back to the restaurant because I'm needed there. And it's a small restaurant. Even though I have a part-time manager, I still have to be there for the big stuff. If we have a rush, suddenly 20 people comes in, I have to be there regardless of whatever I'm doing. I have to drop it. A lot of times when we were going, there's one time we were going to a mall or we were going to a child practice, and I have to cancel that. I have to go back, and my wife Kartika had to take them, by train or even Uber, right? So I becomes it becomes that the restaurant, we are tied to the restaurant, and that's not something I want to do, right? Because especially we love to travel, and even with that, it's not just travel because we don't want to be growing into the next season of our life and the next season of our children's life being tied to a restaurant, right? Or that business, I would say. right? So that's when I start to look at different quote unquote business at that point. And I was listening to Bigger Pockets. I found Robert Kiyosaki. That was the first thing, right? Most of us read Rich Dad Poor Dad at one point, and they kind of transformed their mindset to go into asset-based class and entrepreneurship, right? I was already an entrepreneur. I was just needed to shift in where, okay, well, restaurant, unless you are going to franchise it or multiply, which we did have a plan, but it was a tough thing to do. It was like birthing another child. A lot more. More expenses, right? It's not
Yeah.
like you can just create one and then that's it, right? It's a process again and again, and that's not something I'm willing to do. And then I start looking into real estate, and I'm looking into like, how does people have 20 houses? Because I have I have problems like owning one houses, like one house, my house, right? So I started looking into that, and I joined a real estate mentorship at that point. SubTo wasn't there. I joined local mentorship, and I started learning, and because of my flexibility in time, because of the restaurant, I was able to learn, dedicate time faster, and fast forward 2020, COVID happens. I had to shut down the restaurant, or I was forced to shut down the restaurant, which is good reason. My income dropped from maybe at that point probably like 10,000 a month, right, to zero. Like maybe yeah. So basically, it's to zero, right? So at that point, I had the good thing is I had about, I want to say probably 12 doors at that point. From 2016 to 2020, I probably had about 10 to 12 doors.
Were they
Some of
all
my
here?
partners, yeah, everything at that point was in Chicago. I didn't go anywhere else. Literally just my backyard, right? So I
Okay.
started in my own backyard, which is the south side of Chicago, south suburb. Everything was within 30 miles of where I live,
Okay.
right? So you can get to them within 45 to an hour, right? So it's not bad. So I was managing them, and I was able to manage them, and we're growing steadily, right? I didn't do any flip because I knew real estate wasn't my active income. The real estate was my active. Oh, a restaurant was my active income. But
Yeah.
COVID happens, 2020, shut down, right? And at that point, I have to pivot. Basically, I would say I'm an accidental flipper overnight, because all of my rehab that I did, that I was trying to keep, I had to sell at that point. Now, the big thing too is I realized that cash flow at that point, even though we say, we want cash flow, wasn't enough, because at that point, the cash flow also stops. I mean, tenant wasn't paying at that point.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So,
Yep.
so I basically overnight, I have to change everything. And this is when people were afraid getting out. In January, my contractor wasn't even going out, right? All my projects stopped. I had
Yep.
an open house that was canceled that time, and basically it was one of the most depressing times for me, because
And
everything was just shut down.
for a lot of
For a
people,
lot
they
of
were,
people, yeah.
yeah, because they
Yep.
they saw their loved ones dying. They were just
Mhm.
focused on surviving and not getting
Yeah.
COVID. So yeah,
Right.
I get that.
Mhm.
I get
Yeah.
it.
So,
So
yep.
at what point were you able to move forward a little bit on that?
Mhm. So basically, the first 3 months was just planning, right? Repurposing those houses, trying to deal with the tenant, trying to deal with what government can give us in terms of, money, funds, right? Dealing with the bank to see if they can, uh, forbearance, right? Like
Yep.
my personal house, we were able to do forbearance, but guess what? Some of the uh, commercial loan that I have that is non-conventional, they don't care, because it's
Yeah.
not your personal residence. They will still foreclose on you if you don't pay. So
Yeah.
I had to go reach out to my war chest per se, right? And then have to pay them while my tenant's not paying, and we're waiting for government to give us some money back as a landlord, right? So,
And
but
what
that was
happened when you had to close the restaurant? Were you obligated to? What about a lease and stuff like that? Did you have to worry about that, or did it let it
yeah.
go?
So the good thing is we were always a good tenant, right? Because I always make sure that everyone gets paid and I get
Mhm.
paid the last, right? That's always, I
Yep.
always want to be responsible. So at that point, knowing that we were already 2012 to 2020, yeah, 4 years in, we were actually almost at the lease renewal, and we came up to the landlord and said, hey, you know what, it's COVID. We can pay 50% right now. But then 2 months in, we say, you know what? I mean, the government hasn't said anything. We can't even pay half 50% at this point because like it's not open. I'm bleeding money. I'm basically the restaurant, just the reserve is being paid for this, for you, right? So they end up giving us also forbearance, meaning that we
Nice.
didn't have to pay. And at the end of September, when everything was kind of going back to quote unquote normal, it was never normal to us, but it was normal for a lot of people again in the restaurant business. Um, Everyone was able to pivot, but not us. We decided to kind of sell. We decided to sell the assets of the restaurant, and we settled with the landlord. Which is Yasser might remember. I was talking with Pace there at the restaurant too, because that's when SubTo started, May of 2020, and I was literally sitting at the restaurant, an empty restaurant, right, to do to goes. I was doing to goes. I was doing to goes, and I was talking with Pace and all the Zooms and everything, and the restaurant was in my background. But that's when we decided to sell the restaurant, and when I said sell the restaurant, not the business but the assets, right? So we took whatever we can, and we paid some to the landlord, and we took whatever we can out. Right? Basically, I lost money, but at that point, I didn't look back. Right?
Yeah.
I continued to want to grow my real estate business. At that point, I was learning SubTo. That's why I joined SubTo, because I want to learn a different way to purchase more properties, because I need that to replace my income. Right?
Right.
Because when I hear about SubTo, I wanted to know how to buy properties with the least amount of money, right? Because if you want to make that a business,
When your restaurant has closed down, you might not be able to show them a good W-2.
yeah, exactly, right,
Yeah.
correct, right. So all those stuff, because that's why I learned about seller finance. That's why I learned more about SubTo, and it was great for me because I was able to leverage that. I joined in May, and by August I get my first SubTo, right? And actually, I don't know if you can still find it, but I did a live when I talked to the seller, like, explaining SubTo in her house, and I streamed that live into SubTo group. So it's probably down there somewhere if you can find it. But
Wow.
yeah, people were watching. That was fun because there was only like maybe 200 of us, 300 of us. I'm not sure, but about less than 500. I'm pretty sure.
200 or 300 of you? Okay,
Yeah.
2 or 300 of you would be on a Zoom that somehow wasn't advertised.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
200 or 300 people would
Yeah.
find out about it and go
Yeah.
down and
Yeah.
watch it. So it's
Right.
pretty amazing to think that
Yeah.
the
And
entire
Audrey was taking the video. That's how Audrey was the videographer. So
That's
but
amazing. So she was
fun.
already in SubTo. Oh, that's hysterical. That's
Yeah, but that was fun.
hysterical.
Yeah, I remember
Oh,
it was August. Yep. Yeah. So.
and so you started in May. In August, you got your first SubTo, and then from there, has it been continual growth? What's it look like?
Yeah, it's been continued growth. I accumulate more and more SubTo. I realize Illinois is not the best with SubTo, but it is possible. However, there are bigger markets where people understand SubTo better and creative financing in general better. So we reach out to Indy, right? In Northwest Indiana. Indiana is much more kind of they're more open minded. I would say they're less litigation minded, because here in Illinois, if you tell about subject two, and Audrey's been into like conversation where she tried to explain stuff too, and she was talking with a seller that's also a lawyer, and she didn't know that, and she said, well, you know what, I'm a lawyer and I think that's illegal, and she was like, like at that point, she didn't know what to say, right? Which is, we had a recording of that, which is funny. So, but it was something like, and I was there, I was like, and I told her, like, just tell her that someone's going to reach out, like my manager's going to reach out. That's always the answer you give, right? Hey, I don't have your answer, but someone that knows about this will reach out to you, right? So
Wow.
that's yeah, and so and then we find out that Northwest Indiana is or some in Indiana is better with subject to and final financing, which is the house that you want is actually a SubTo on a reverse mortgage, right? I think I explained that to you.
On a reverse mortgage?
In a reverse mortgage, right?
Okay.
Now I did it differently. If I were to do it again, this is why it's lessons learned, right? I did it successfully. I was able to refinance it out. I got some cash out. Like recently, like last November, I was actually cashing it out. I got back $40,000 on a reverse
Nice.
mortgage, right? So it was good. And then but if I were to do it again, I would do it differently. I would still do reverse mortgage up to. I would still do reverse mortgage on creative financing, but it would be different, right? So, and then everywhere else we were doing seller finance. I have a 5 unit in Chicago too that does seller finance. So seller finance is better in Chicagoland area if the building is free and clear. But anything with a mortgage, usually people are like, well, that's illegal, right? But it's different in Northwest Indiana. People are more open. It's more open in Southwest Florida where we are right now because it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like everyone,
Talk about that. Why Southwest? Why Florida? I mean, I would have thought it was because of the weather, but whatever.
Oh yeah.
Tell us
Well,
how you ended up being there, because a lot of us know you're there.
yeah. Well, the weather is a bonus, I would say. Right? The weather is a bonus, big bonus, right? So the reason we were there is the group I'm part in Chicago. Realizing that COVID was happening and things are changing in Chicagoland area, we started looking around together as a collective. We started looking around, and we started looking around at the what we call the southern side of U.S., right, or the Bible Belt, right. So we looked from Arizona, right, and then we looked at Texas, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida, right? And so, with all of those that we looked at, we're trying to look at something that is similar, or a profile that is similar with Chicago. The city that is similar with Chicago in population and in growth and everything. Because usually, if it's similar, then we can repeat what we're doing in Chicago. That's it. We're not trying to create something new. We're trying to duplicate that is successful. That's been successful for us for the last 10 years.
Got it.
Right? So we have a template, which is Chicagoland area that we have. And then now we're trying to find those, right? So we started with Arizona, which Arizona was hot. Arizona was good, right? But I think, to be honest, to a lot of us, it's too far.
It is far.
It's too far.
They're lucky because they have a number of flights coming in and such, but it's not like
yeah.
Many times you can't go direct. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. It's still a little bit too far, right? So and then we went to Texas. Texas is great, right? There's a lot of development and everything. So Texas was actually number one. DFW area, Houston area, right? Austin, as you know. And we also look at Georgia, which is outside Atlanta. And we also look at Southwest Florida when we started at Tampa, actually. We look at Tampa, we look at the growth of Tampa, and we look at data, right? Because at that point, if you remember, there's a migration pattern, right? We look at migration pattern, like how people would leave Illinois and going to which state. So
Right.
we're based our decision on data, right? To be honest, right? We could have ended up in Texas. We could have ended up in Arizona, not because of the weather, but more of the data. So out of everything like that, we look at how hot the market is and how crazy the market was back then, and that was back on the end of 2020 to 2021.
Yeah.
We look at how hot. We all know how hot Phoenix was at that point,
Yes.
right? Everything was like, you can still get a deal, but it was crazy hot, right? In terms of appreciation and all those, everything that's going on, and and all the teachers and mentors starting in Arizona, teaching people wholesale and everything, and becomes, I wouldn't say too much competition, but it was just harder things to grow. And again, we're looking for growth. We're not looking just one time, right? We're looking at if we go there, can we do this for 5 years or at least? And we don't see it in Arizona at that point, right? And we went to Houston, and Houston, the same thing. You see how Houston blew up, how Austin blew up, and now we believe, and again, this is arguable. Texas is way too high right now, right? When there's a correction, Texas is probably going to get hit the most, I would say. Now then, we went to Atlanta. Atlanta is nice. Atlanta was actually our choice too, but we saw a lot of opportunities for new construction
In Atlanta.
into Atlanta too, right? And that's when we start. In Houston too, we saw. right? But when we see the number of new construction that was done between Texas, Georgia, and Southwest Florida,
Mhm.
there's a huge amount of construction going on in Southwest Florida, and there's so many land that's still available. So that's why we start thinking about why don't we start building there, right? And then we look at the numbers and see if we can actually build to rent, right? Because it's the build to rent model is not a new term, but it wasn't done, um, in a big scale before, right? And then we're trying
So
to see
is
if we
it
can
in
do it.
Tampa? Is Tampa the
It's
area?
actually so we start in Tampa because we always go with a quote unquote metro area, right? We always start like, okay, what is similar to Chicago, right? Let's look at Houston. Let's look at
Yep.
Phoenix. Let's look at and then we start doing the suburb, right? Now we start looking at, okay, if people work in Tampa, where do they live? Because not everyone can afford Tampa,
Right.
and we don't want to go to the bad area of Tampa. We don't want to go to the war zone. We want to go to area that can gentrify. So we start looking, and then
Right.
we went down to Sarasota, and we look at Sarasota, which is south of Tampa, and south of Tampa, uh, we found that Sarasota is nice, but actually it's also a little bit more expensive because it's a great city, great demographics, and great school. So now we're looking at maybe we should look at Sarasota because Sarasota like a small Chicago. Not it's very, very small Chicago. It's probably like Schaumburg,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know?
Schaumburg is
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, right? Yeah, you would live in Schaumburg, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yes, I
so
would.
yeah,
Yep.
so now we look at that. So we look at opportunities and we look at okay, if people were to go to Sarasota to work, where do they live? And then we start going down again, right? And where everything is more affordable, right? Because our target is renting, not flipping.
Right.
Right, and for rentals, we have to see what makes sense in cash flow and everything, right? So
So
we
where
keep
did you settle on?
we kept going down, and we settled on a city called Port Charlotte.
Port what?
Port Charlotte,
How do you spell that?
like Charlotte as in
Oh,
Charlotte,
Charlotte.
South.
Or Charlotte.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Port Charlotte. Yeah. So we went there, and that's where me and my group start to do build to rent. Now a lot of things changes after that. If you remember, Hurricane Ian happened. So you also remember, we all know the interest rate is double what it used to now. So the numbers all change,
Yeah.
right? But again, as investor, me and my partner, we always see opportunities, right? So for me, I pivot from doing new construction into getting a lot of creative finance. So we got a couple of SubTos already. We got a lot of houses that was damaged by Hurricane Ian, and we're turning them into STR, MTR, or hybrid, whatever we can get. So we have a mix of portfolio now in Southwest Florida.
Well, when you did that, were you hit by the insurance fiasco?
Yes,
Because
so now it's a whole lot of problem, right? Because some of our house is um, we have houses on canals, right? So some houses are older, so we are hit by the tax, so we have to now strategize on a the different exit strategy. For example, okay, so Rory's there, right? It's only favor insurance. Yeah, insurance sucks in Southwest Florida now. We were hit like our insurance went from 1,500 to 3,500
so
overnight.
did you pay the 3,500 or are you going naked as they call it? Or
So
what are you doing?
so we can't because we have a mortgage on them. Right? If your house is cash, which is a lot of people there when they bought the house maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, so now their house is free and clear. They skip the insurance, but when Hurricane Ian happened, they don't have the money to repair them because they're not self-insured per se. If you're self-insured, it's not like you're not paying insurance. You're saving money, right, on the side. You're saving like $1,000, $1,500 a year, whatever it is, for the next 10 years, right? Or even after it's pretty clear, so you got some money on the side. The war chest is there, but a lot of people they don't, right? So now when the hurricane hits, well, guess what? They have to sell because they can't live in the house. They have some equity. It's not what it's worth, but they want to take that equity and move back with their family, for example, or move back to more like Central
Where they
Florida,
came from,
Jacksonville. Yeah, so a lot of families
And,
come.
and
So
you're still picking up those kind of properties,
oh
or
yeah, oh yeah. Every single day, there's always someone. I mean, Rory can say this. Everyone who's watching in Southwest Florida can attest to, like, every single day they will still find houses that are gutted because they were mold remediated and never been repaired. You would still see, this is the thing, Effie. If you go to Southwest Florida, right from Chicago, you'll fly over. When you fly over Florida, you will see a lot of blue tarp still, and what that
Mm,
means is the roof is still not repaired. And this is almost 2 years of Hurricane Ian, because
right?
Hurricane Ian happened in 2022. Yeah, 2022. Yeah. Oh, see, Rory can say, yeah. So it's still happening. There's so much damage, and the insurance is playing games, right? So we're still busier even with getting these houses that is still distressed. People
Yeah.
are building, and we got a one deal from Munif. You know Munif. We got one deal
Yep.
from Munif where they were building and they decided not to build after the hurricane because they just don't want to deal with um, whatever next to come. So we took that over, basically a new shell that was built, and they don't want to finish, and we finish it. And that was
And
after the hurricane.
what happens when you finish it? Can you get it insured, or do you have to pay
Yes,
through
yes,
those?
yes. You can get it insured, and the good thing is if you have a new build, usually you build it higher than the other houses, right? So
I
it's on the new standard, right? So every year you look at the FEMA, you look at the flood zone, you look at the kind of like whatever the elevation, right?
Mhm.
Then and you have to do a permit, and they would check the elevation required, and every year they would usually build higher. So the new
Is
builds
that
that
on
we built,
stilts? Is it like on stilts?
not on stilts, but they would just put dirt, a lot of dirt. They would put a
Oh,
lot of dirt, so your house is literally 6 feet taller than the, than the other houses. Like
okay.
you should go see our houses. Our house is literally like
Yeah,
6 feet taller
yeah.
than the next house. And then
Interesting.
the neighbor's not too happy because whenever there's a flood, it goes to their house, not our house, because water goes to the lower ground.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
yeah,
That's
but that's
doesn't
how it is.
doesn't the dirt just wash away?
Well, you put in dirt and you put in landscaping, right? So so you put in grass and and everything.
Yeah,
So
and
it,
that
it gets it
dirt.
gets absorbed. Yeah, it gets
Okay.
absorbed. So yeah. So Melissa has one for sale. So
Yep.
send it to me. Profit with Oscar. DM me.
All righty. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. It's fascinating to see
yeah,
that even in a place where, there are a lot of issues because of the insurance and such and the weather, that you guys can still be making a profit.
yeah,
Now,
yeah. It's
are you still planning when Audrey and Evelyn graduate from high school to move down there?
uh, we're not sure yet because we have our own plan. Me and my wife. We're 45 now, and by the time we're 50, we have a plan that we don't want to be attached to a business physically because we experience the restaurant. So we want to have business where we love traveling, right? So we want to go visit the world. When by
Yep.
the time we're 50, we want to be like somewhere all around the world and the business still runs. And obviously at that point, our goal is different than our girls' goal, right? So, but it's safe to say Florida is not kind of like our retirement place. We have houses in Florida, and I think the goal for us is to have houses or place to stay where we have our businesses, quote unquote. We have our assets, quote unquote, and just really the place that we enjoy visiting, right? I mean, we talked about you, Effie. You want to move to California,
Yep.
right?
You know
Same
what?
thing.
When you get past a certain age, and I'm right around that now, your
Hmm.
body starts to kick you in the ass. Like just
Hmm.
a little
Yeah.
bit of arthritis sitting in and cold on the
Right.
hips. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what's this? And my body's saying, you don't know
Yeah.
what it is? Look out the freaking window. Look out the window,
Yeah.
you idiot. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, right,
okay.
right. It's like
Yeah,
-0 or -5, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
no, but that's kind of like what we like to do, right? So as we visit, the different states, my wife, well, right now, my wife really likes San Diego, for example. Like she enjoys San Diego. We
San
used to like
Diego.
San Francisco, but like what's going on with San Francisco now, maybe not the best place, right? We don't know. we always love LA, or the suburbs of LA, because we still have a lot of friends, Indonesian friends that live in LA or surrounding.
Yeah.
The suburbs of LA, I would say, right? And LA is great for food and culture and, everything that's going on for us Asians. So, LA might be somewhere where we can, hey, let's get a place outside LA, right? And let's just get that as our second home or our residency or what. I don't think it's going to be primary residency. LA or California is bad for business. so
Yeah, I've already
let's just
figured
say,
out it has to be just a little bit under 50%. And then
yeah,
I got to find another place that's really good for taxes.
right. So yeah, and like for
Yeah.
example, we love Seattle, we love Vancouver. My family used to live in Vancouver, and we enjoy Vancouver a lot, right? So
I
again,
dreamt
like
about Vancouver yesterday.
you did, man.
I
I
did.
love it. I wanna bring my family to Vancouver.
It
So
made
bad.
me
Like,
realize that I can't just say not Vancouver.
hmm?
It made me realize when I woke up,
Oh,
I realized,
you know,
yeah, I can't say no to Vancouver.
yeah,
Like it's not going to ever happen there
yeah,
because it is so beautiful.
it
And
is.
it depends on
Hmm.
the months. I don't like being there in November, December, but yeah,
Hmm. Okay.
interesting. And now tell us before we head out, because we're a little bit over time. I want to know
Hmm.
what the heck is this?
Oh yeah, KPI book is my latest venture. So again, this is also accidental because in 2020, after the whole fiasco of being a real estate entrepreneur overnight, I realized my book sucks. It is my financial books, right? Restaurant I can handle, but real estate I'm like, what the heck is this now? Like I'm deep in like 10 buy and hold and 3 rehabs. I don't even know I'm making money or not, and that's bad for any entrepreneur. With restaurant, it's easy. You can look at your cost of goods sold and you know how much you make at the end of the night, right? Real estate is like, what is this? Every day I'm losing $10,000 on rehab. Like, when am I making money, right? With rehab. So basically, that's what I found a really good bookkeeper. His name is Joel, and we still work together. Now he's my co-COO, I would say, or head of operation. And I taught him everything about real estate because he's really great at bookkeeping, very, very the right person for bookkeeping. I taught him about real estate because I find that there's very, very little uh, bookkeeper that knows about real estate. I mean, there are a few, and they're usually investors, but a lot of times they are bookkeeper that became investor. I'm a investor that needs a bookkeeper that is able to look at my case studies and all the things that I do and all the creative finance that I do, and I'm able to explain it like a 5-year-old to a bookkeeper. So it
Great.
became a perfect partnership. And at that point, for example, Marlon's one of our first clients because Marlon and I are good buddies since 2020, right? We talk a lot, and one day I'm like, Marlon, how's your books? Right? Like, you do stuff. I know you
Your
do stuff. Like,
mindset's great, but how
yeah,
are your
yeah.
books?
How's your books, right? So I'm like, oh, and he would say, oh my good, yeah. You know what? I don't even have a book. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I have this bookkeeper. I like to hire him full time because right now, even with all my business, I couldn't hire him full time because he does things so fast and so good. Right? So I want to keep him. I don't want him to get away with all the things I taught him. Right? So that's how we start. We start with a bunch of my friends, and some of them are SubTo that needs bookkeeping too. So it's really accidental of me trying to help people. Really, I was not trying to make money. I was trying to hire a full-time bookkeeper. So I'm like, Marlon, I'm just going to charge you like my costs, right? Because I want to keep this guy,
Yeah.
right? So that's how I grew. And now we grow into like we were able to put business and systems that I implement for all other businesses, and we hire a business coach. And now that's what KPI Books is, right? Is key profit indicators or key profit investors, right? Which
Nice.
is, we as investors needs to know our key profit indicators,
I like
right? So
it.
this is what the goal is. Then the goal is to simplify the complexity of financing books, like your books,
Hmm.
right? Because it's very complex. When you talk to a bookkeeper, he's just going to say like, oh yeah, balance sheet, profit and loss, blah blah blah, cash flow. Like, we should know that, but a lot of people, it's way over their head. I just need to know if I make money or not, right? And we try to help them with that, right? Because I know what I want. I know what I need as an entrepreneur, and I want to give that to my clients. So
Great.
it's a really unique company, and I'm really proud of creating it and growing it because there's so much need. We're not just bookkeepers. We become right now. I realize I've become a also kind of like what we call a fractional CFO to a lot of my partners. to a lot of my clients because I'm able to give them like say exit strategy if they want to quit their W-2 because I've been through it, right? And so I want to be able to impart that. I want to help them. I want to help increase their profit. I want to help them become better because, well, let's face it, if they blow up, if they can make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million revenue, well, we make more too because now their books are so busy, we can charge them more,
Yeah.
right? So it's a win-win. You help people, and then you get the fruit.
Yep.
So it's a really good. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and it's not just the bookkeeping. It's not just having a business. It's just to correct and to create a better mindset in terms of financial literacy and responsibility to business person or entrepreneur, especially in real estate.
That's great. That's really
Yeah.
good. All right, guys. So go there too. Okay. I'm sending you all over the place this time.
Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
and make sure you mention Effie because
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna help Effie more.
I always forget to plug myself, but yes, don't hesitate to go to this video after it's posted and make some comments. That's apparently where I'm failing. Okay. I mean, where you guys are failing because you're the ones that have to make the comments. Oh, that is so hysterical. All right. Well, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We are going to say goodbye until next week and see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.